analysis, but that's what we have both the founders here for. As always, we have Sumit with us from Fair Angels. Govind's actually busy on family duty, which is really adorable if I could announce, but I will not. So we will be proceeding with just Sumit today. And for our guests, we have Shaurya and Amandeep, who are the founders and co-founders of Justbaat. They've been kind enough to let us know that they will be helping us with a lot of recruitment requirement if they have, which means that if you stay tuned till the end, you will know more. So yeah, to start off, hi Shaurya, hi Aman, welcome here. This is Creators of Products. We do this session almost weekly, and we are really happy to have you here. Please tell us what Justbaat is all about.
Thank you, Shruti and Sumit. Thank you, Utkarsh, for having us here. So I'll quickly start with correcting you. So we are not the clubhouse. we are not trying to be the clubhouse of India. In fact, while Justbaat as the name suggests, it's a very Indian name because the way we started this was for a very specific problem, and the thought just grew the way it is today. And so we are definitely creating a global product here. What we are creating is it's an audio content distribution platform for the world. So any publisher, if they want to plug in audio experience at their end, they can just use our ready web SDK or mobile SDK and light up the audio experience on their platform. What we have for them is audio live rooms. Mm-hmm. What we have for them is audio player, but we don't stop here. So we are not a SaaS company. What we have for them is also content. So that's the differentiator. So we allow them to have more immersive experiences around audio, right? They can strategically plug in podcasts or social podcasts into their experience, which enables any publisher, any content platform to improve their engagement as once we are plugged in. Mm-hmm. So the way, probably without even asking, I'll quickly jump on to why this and how did we arrive at this.
I was going to ask that.
I'm really sorry. I love talking, so please stop me. And this is where, my co-founder compliments me. He loves to stay quiet while I talk.
I'm guessing hence the company.
And hence the company. So both me and Amandeep, we've known each other since 2012. Both of us joined Wink Music as the first team folks out there. So I was the first product manager of Wink, and Aman was the engineering manager at Wink. And we literally worked together for almost 3.5 years to, get the platform ground up. When we started building the application, applications were not known back then. Even we were not aware. We were also building it for the first time. And thankfully, the place that we were at was kind enough, that they gave us that opportunity to work on something like this, because even the smartphone penetration, Android was all new back then. So, and there were hardly any reference points. I mean, honestly, today, I won't say that it's easy, but, it's fairly, there are reference points available. There is GitHub, which is
you can go back and
you can go back. You can at least,
yes.
You could look at better UI UXs, right? I mean, the world is out there. Yes. It does not take much to download an app, which is in the US. Back in those times, we had to use TunnelBrick. Right?
Yes, and figure out. Used it for 2 years ago for Spotify.
Yeah. So that's how we started. We literally hustled together, building Wink. There were instances where I used to fly down to Bombay with a hard disk. We used to get the songs from the offices of T-Series or such content providers, and then we used to upload it on our system. So we've even done that, for that matter. So it was a very quick jugaad thingy that we put up, but the product really landed well in the market, and eventually also the processes and everything came into place. So today, of course, Wink is one of the better known brands out there, and the company is really doing well. So that is how we've known each other. One of the key challenges that we saw while we were building Wink was, as I said, right, getting the content and getting the content at a right price was the challenge, because honestly, the music content is extremely expensive.
Yes.
And most of the cost of any music platform out there is content. So what we are doing today, we had visualized back then that, hey, if we take the content cost out of this entire equation, then this product would probably become profitable on day one. I mean, not profitable, but at least it will
Make
become
revenue.
business viable. Yeah, right. So we came up with a proposal and we deliberated. But of course, this was 2015, 2014. So UGC was not really known, and video was almost picking up with 4G coming in. So this thought was never executed, but it just sticked around. And honestly, now coming back to Clubhouse, fast forward 6 years, when we really saw Clubhouse happening, that was kind of a validation that, hey, audio is still relevant. And even the Gen Z would want to engage if the medium and the format is right. So that just revalidated the entire hypothesis that we had built in 2015. And that is when I called up Aman. I was in Indonesia. Aman was in India. He was still with Airtel. I called him up and I was like, hey, shall we try this once more? And he was like, how do you want to do it? I was like, everybody's building a startup. We could also try doing it. so that is how it all started. So not really an inspirational story of how all of this happened. Everything was
No.
put together.
I was there. I was at Snapdeal in 2011, so I know the timeline. But actually, I'll only ask you one thing: is it true that Wink made sure that every Airtel connection got a Wink connection, and that's why you became big, or did you become big because you acquired users? I have never had an Airtel number.
So I think that's I mean, see, that's the right thing to do as well, right?
I think that was a really smart thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's the right thing or the really smart thing to do. Wherein see, cost of user acquisition even today. Yes. I mean, everybody's just fighting for the same attention span and for the same user, right? And if you've got direct access to a lot of users, then ideally any wise person would advise that you utilize it, right? See, it's all about creating the distribution. It's all about creating the attention span, and that is exactly what we are doing. And so, to be in all honesty, when we were thinking about building something like Justbaat, we never thought that we'll end up building a B2B solution. Everybody starts with a B2C product, right? Our initial thought was always B2C, but after we got after we started thinking about it, after we started thinking about the PMF, the cost and everything, we realized that, hey, while audio did catch a lot of people's attention, but then again, building a standalone platform is going to be difficult. Right? And it's going to be difficult. And this is something that I don't understand why this Sotela treatment with audio, right? You don't have to go to a specific destination to find good video content. Yeah, you don't have to go to a specific destination to find good text content. There's enough mesh overlap across the web, right? You don't really have to struggle to find it, not with audio. Right.
Yes, so even, I mean, in my really maybe uninformed opinion, when I see a trailer, and by trailer I mean when I see a context of what the video is about, I can see it. When I read a headline, I know what might be inside. But unless I hear something, I don't know what the audio room or the audio part is about. So I'm guessing that the thing that you're saying about being not discoverable as the counterparts at video and text, I think that is where, as a consumer, I would end up not knowing what it is about and not discovering it with the minimum amount of attention, even though I could do that even subconsciously with video, because I'll be able to see the thumbnail or read the headline. I think that is what is the difference.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you brought this up. So honestly, even the audio format is changing, right? It's not the same play the way we had out there anymore. In fact, let me come back to the Wing example. When we started building Wing, right, in the UI, we had designed a thumbnail that, whenever the song will play, you're required to have a thumbnail.
Yeah.
And honestly, back in 2012, people did not have thumbnails mapped to their songs, to their metadata, right? I mean, of course, the bigger content players had it. Yeah, but the smaller content players never had it.
No.
So we literally ended up building a thumbnail for a lot of people back then, right? And the reason why I'm giving this example, that every intervention is also evolving the audio format. Audio started with radio, where people used to listen to it and there was nothing visual. But today audio has equal visual elements, right? Of course, it's less intrusive, but it has visual elements. And this is the difference between a podcast and a social podcast, right? Mm-hmm. Where you would have I mean, for the lack of a better medium, probably this was something that started. But today you will see a lot of podcasters who are on YouTube who would have a mic in front of them, a video on, and they call themselves podcasters.
Yes.
But this is how the format is evolving, right? And people are now comfortable doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not audio only. I would say it's audio first is where the world is getting to. When they say audio first, what do they mean? That there is no cognitive load of force video watch, right? Even without looking at the screen, you will be able to understand the context, and you will be able to imagine of what are the possibilities all about. So
Correct.
that is how the format is evolving, and this is exactly why we are building this, right? Mm-hmm. We strongly feel that audio as a format needs evolution or is evolving, and somebody needs to fuel this. Second, we strongly feel that discovery of audio is still a challenge. So let's say you want to hear podcasts, and this is something that I realized back in those days when I was in Indonesia. I'm a bit fluffy, so I started walking, and of course I started listening to music when you typically walk. So I had my own playlist, but thankfully I was becoming a regular walker. So listening to the same playlist again and again was just becoming a challenge. How many songs will you listen to every day? Right? 100, 200, 2000. But if you're like walking for 7 days a week and for about an hour, you can't be listening to songs for 70 hours. So I wasn't a podcasting. I was never a podcast listener. In fact, I never used to understand even the format of podcasting back then. But it was more of a forced discovery or an accidental discovery that happened. And once I started listening to it, I really loved it. In fact, I thought that, the way I started looking at it was that, hey, this walking thing is actually helping me out because A, it's an investment towards health. Second, I get to be with myself. Third, I also get to learn. I also get to hear something which is better. So it's just not random music listening. So, but then, once I started getting into this route or, started discovering the podcast, I also realized that, hey, getting quality content around audio or every day getting to hear what you want to is a big challenge. Fortunately or unfortunately, even today we do not have a strong recommendation built in by any of the podcast players. None of the podcast platforms have it, and it is 2022 already. Go to any damn video platform, you'll see a very, very strong recommendation engine. Why is that not happening around it? This is exactly where we saw the gaps, right? And hence we decided to build Justbaat.
Awesome. So if I were to understand in an absolute non-product manager layman language, what Justbaat does is lets me as maybe a marketer or a publisher or a content creator use my content and publish it across, from what I know, web articles. I can publish it. Can I go and publish it on Spotify?
Yes.
Can I go and put it on YouTube?
Yes.
Can I share it across a WhatsApp link?
Yes.
Can I make a transcription of it and put it next to? All right. So essentially, I am now enabling my audio, which was a discovery problem because there is no thumbnail per se, to become discoverable via, say, SEO in case of articles.
Yeah, multiple interfaces. So we are more of a, I don't think the marketplace will be the right word, but just for the context. So we work at both the ends. So one side of the business is where we work with the publishers, where we enable them to create content and where we enable them to publish and republish content, right? So that's one end of the spectrum. The second end of the spectrum that you spoke about is the creators, right? Once this pipeline is built, right? See, the text library, the video library is almost uncountable now, right? I mean, there are like millions, zillions of text, blogs, videos available out there. Not with audio. There are only 2 million podcasts, on this planet. So it's
even
still to evolve.
Podcast is like picking up, and it's something that everyone's putting their interest in. I'm guessing that's because it's easy to create. There's no filters required. There's no lighting required. There is just some form of good acoustics. That's it.
Correct.
Which is doable. Plus, it looks way more authentic because you can't edit while speaking live. That was like the thing at Clubhouse that made it big. But coming back to Justbaat, now that you discovered that you had this gap, and you could multi-platform create something that could help both publishers as well as consumers. How did you go about convincing, or I think I mean to ask, how do people discover that there's something like this? Because I'm not a publisher, so one, I don't know, but had there been a requirement of something like this for even creators of products, I wouldn't know where to start. I would literally have conversation thinking, maybe we should upload all of our YouTube content on Spotify just so that people can keep listening to our sessions. So how does one go about discovering that you exist?
Right. So at this point, we are fairly early. So, we are not really out there in the market. We are still doing, we still have a POC candidate for that matter. So yeah, that's now. But eventually, once we start getting, a lot of publishers onto this network, that is when, of course, powered by Justbaat will be there. And, we will also invest a bit more on growth and some bit of marketing for us. So that will happen. But coming back to what you mentioned, right? That the good part about audio is that it is really, really low cost of production. And this is exactly why we feel that, with a lot of new to internet users coming on board, audio will play a very, very phenomenal role, because there's a research out there from the market which says that, 59% of the new to internet users love consuming content in their own language.
Yes.
And honestly, we don't even have content around languages like Bhojpuri. By the way, Bhojpuri is not a language. The language is Purabiya, the language is Chota Nagpuri, the language is Maithili, the language is Awadhi, the language is Konkani. We don't have content on such languages. The internet is just black and white in the English for the most part, right?
For the most part, yes. But these exist. They don't exist in a discoverable, shareable manner. They exist in silos, and they're very big in silos.
That's correct. So that's going to be one part of the enablement that we will do for the creators, right? The second part of the enablement that we're going to do is around discovery, where we are investing a lot to build a robust recommendation engine across platforms. So we will, of course, in accordance with all the GDPR norms and everything, we will identify you as a user, right? And then we will start recommending the right set of content that you might want to consume, in your journey. So that ML learning will happen slowly. So all the audio content that will get ingested on the platform eventually will see a lot of users also.
All right. So we already have Leher, which is trying to do something like this. We also have now seen a very small but uptick on Twitter Spaces. I wouldn't call Clubhouse dead. I would just call it paused. It's not growing at the pace at what it was right at the beginning of last year, which is common for a company which has just started. So which of these 2-3 do you see yourself most scared about? And by scared, I mean, like, I have to at least do that.
Yeah. So, as I said, all of these are individual standalone platforms. We are not. So we are where you are, I mean, as a consumer, right? So we get plugged into where you're consuming content. So this is just an example of how we get plugged into a publisher's ecosystem, right? Mm-hmm. So this is the recommendation that we would have. This is the way we enable live rooms, and then, contextual recommendations also going forward. So just a quick snapshot. So one, we are not trying to build a standalone platform. We are a platform agnostic network. So that's one big differentiation. Now, coming back to your question, which is the threat. Honestly, at this point, every threat could be anyone, but we also need to understand. See, technically and operationally, what we are doing might be easier for the existing platforms to do, but strategically, it will be a challenge. They have invested all their lives to build a platform. Now we think you don't have to build a platform. You have to create a distribution network. And your platform, if it exists, good. If it does not exist, doesn't matter. So all your effort has to go away, and you have to enable everybody else to win. So that is the strategic shift that people will have to do to compete with us.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So
correct.
At this point, I don't know. I mean, at least the market information that I have, at this point, probably people are not thinking the way we are. So
yes. I mean, I would know this for video plugins, And I would know this for advertisement plugins, but I have not known this for audio specific only plugin. And I think that's one thing that I admire about being in a position of just listening to audio, is that I can do everything else and I can just keep listening to what's going on. And that's what radio originally started as. But I don't control what I hear on the radio. I can pretty much control this. However, there has been a lot of pushback and a lot of behavioral complaints about people being in a live chat room and the way you end up moderating it. Now, I'm not sure if that comes into a roadmap of Justbaat right now, because you're still to get to a stage where everyone's using it and people are, I mean, that is actually a good problem to have. But how do you envision doing it? Because content creation and uploading does not need moderation. But when you get into a phase where people are UGCing live, that's when you need to be making sure that whatever is a guideline is met, and whatever is a recommended manner of speaking is met. I mean, everyone's there to burn the world. How do you envision that happening for Jasper?
So interesting question. So to start with, we are not really UGC. I mean, creating a room, for example, on a publisher interface is only allowed for the publishers to start with, right? That's one. Second, the publisher could, of course, get somebody to speak, and then somebody could be foul-mouthed. So how do we control that in a live scenario? So two things. One, of course, we built into moderation tools, like you could block a person, you can force mute a person, you could just push them out of the room. So that's one. And because we will eventually be a cross-platform thingy, so if you're blogged on, let's say, X platform and you want to participate on a Y platform, then we'll of course tell the Y platform that, hey, this fellow did something random on platform X, so please beware.
You
right?
tag them, but you won't actually end up holding them off.
That's correct. So that is the immediate plan that we will do in the future. In an ideal way, technically, what we want to do would be, and we've done some small POCs around this as well, where where we would want to do some experimentation around delaying the speech of the person, probably by 50 milliseconds or 100 milliseconds, record that on the fly, see whether there are hot words present, and that is where a real machine inbuilt moderation will come in. But all of us are pretty far from that thought at this point. I mean, it's not only us, but do we have it in our roadmap? Yes. Would we want to invest in this? Yes, but not today.
Not right now. Yeah, makes sense. Another interesting question that I had, and I think I'll pass it on to Sumit. Sumit, do you have that question with you? Because I have a lot of questions.
I thought I'm not getting a chance to speak today. I thought Shruti is driving it today. I had a couple of questions for Shaurya, but I think today Shruti is in full flow. I didn't interrupt her, that's why. No, I think Shaurya, a very quick question for the audience listening, watching this event. Could you tell us about some of the proof of concept you're doing with a couple of big publishing houses and how the progress has been on that? I think that's a very interesting problem statement. And I think it will be very good to know exactly how you're trying to solve it and what's your biggest learning from those proof of concepts.
Sure. So at this point, we are live with 4 and we are signing, we've almost signed the 5th one. But I would not want to name it at this point. But yeah, so we are live with Big FM, we are live with Patrika, we are live with Shiros, and we are live with India News or News X, as we all know it. So we've done small POCs with them till this stage, but Patrika is like going full blown starting tomorrow. So probably we might see a bunch of ads of Patrika starting live rooms, and even Big FM starting live rooms on their platform very, very soon. Our learnings from the POC was that most of the people in this country, they've not really experienced this format, right? So the first thing that we went live with was India News, and where Sabah Kareem, the cricketer, came in with and he was hosting a live room. And because India News, being a publisher, has got a lot of audience, which probably are not the Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces audience, for them this was like a first ever experience of their life. And when they really got to interact with Sabah Kareem, the people just went, it just went berserk. Everybody was raising their hand in the room. And, of course, a few people were called in. Not everybody is possible to be pulled into a live stream because it was only 45 minutes. So, but the excitement level was phenomenal. And this is exactly where we see, the power of this medium, where, once more and more publishers get on board, and once more and more different sort of genres, start getting experimented with, different sort of audience start coming in around with this medium. This medium is probably going to, just blast out there. So,
all right.
that's
Have you seen any dip in engagement now that things have started to open up, and now that people actually are going into office and are not interacting with? I mean, that's the usual dip that every other audio platform has ended up seeing. Or is that something that you avoided because you started at this point only when people were going down? So now you're building interest as their habits are changing.
So yes, we avoided this dip because we are just starting up. Secondly, I won't see it like a dip per se, because we are not live only, right? So once you start consuming the publisher network, you will eventually stumble upon us, right? So the cumulative engagement of our platform is not going to get impacted. It's not been impacted so far, but we are very, very early that way. So probably not the right claim to make. But as I said, most of the people are just finding this format for the first time. They're just experiencing this format for the first time, and they're delighted. But eventually, of course, once we grow, once we scale up, we will probably stumble upon some level of stagnation. But let's see when we get there. Probably a good problem to have, and then we'll solve it. No problem to solve it.
I actually meant the whole consumption, not just the live rooms. I don't see you as the Indian version of that anymore. Sumit, if you don't have a question, I still have one more question.
I'm going to hate you today. I'm going to hate you after this call. I'm going to call you and tell you it's not fair. With fair angels.
Okay, just one last question. Now, with your experience at Wink, Shaurya, and the fact that you could, at that point is when people started to discover not just Hindi and English songs, but like local content. I'm sure you have a lot of insights that you bring in from an Indian consumer perspective onto something which has to do with Justbaat. Now, how are you planning to cater to almost every kind of regional language? Is there a specific insight that you think you would be able to share? Not business specific, but like specific to the behavior of an Indian consumer of a local language. And also, how are you, what is like your shareable plan to let us know about that?
No, sure. So see, the good part about this medium is that it's also interactive, right? And this is where it becomes interesting. People would not want to interact in English. People will not want to interact in pure Hindi, but they would love to interact in the language that they any which way they interact in, right? So what we're also enabling is kind of a forced consumption or forced interaction in the languages that people understand, right? For example, if you go to, let's say, if you're doing a live room on a publisher website which is addressing the audience of Jharkhand, for example, and if they start doing a live room in English, it will not make sense, right? It will make sense when they do it in the local Chota Nagpuri language, and that is where people will also be interested to participate. So the medium in itself comes with a lot of local content creation enablement. So that's the fun part, and the engagement is definitely higher when the conversation goes local. This is a fact, and this is a fact across our deployment that we've seen, right? So we have seen where people start talking in English, but eventually they move to the local language, and that is where the debates and the conversations, they all warm up. In fact, the coming back on the podcast. So putting the player was easy, but getting the content right is the difficult part, right? What we've seen, when we are able to identify a user and we know the language that is used to consume content in, which is, by the way, again, because of our interaction with the user, because on the internet is not aware today. For example, me, internet knows that I like English because there is nothing else available, which is why I like English, right? So that's the difference that we are trying to create there, right? So that's the fundamental shift that we've seen, that when you give people content in the language that they understand, they tend to engage more.
I'm not even going to start the question. It's Sumit's. What, you don't have one?
I have, but I'm having some breakfast. But anyways, I can ask one question. Shaurya and Amandeep, we know about you. We have met 2012, almost 10 years. Mm-hmm. What keeps you going every single day, guys? What is the biggest fuel that keeps you passionate about this startup? And I want to hear from Amandeep this time. Sorry, cutting. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Ask from Amandeep this time. He's a silent killer.
So basically, all of our lives, Shaurya and me, are building basically products for corporates. We have built successful company like Wink. Right now, it's 17 million monthly active users. I've started Airtel Extreme. It's around 40-50 monthly active users. So now this is our best chance to basically build our own product, which will basically, this is our dream come true. Now we are close to basically going far beyond our product market fit. So the light of success basically keeps us going daily, that we have to succeed this product to a level that after the startup we don't have to work. We have to retire.
That's a very honest answer.
Okay, but that's not true, guys. That's not true. Startup building is very tough. Yeah. It's going to be a fantastic journey with lots of downs and some of ups. But you need to keep going.
Yeah, that we know.
No, as Aman said, right? Honestly, both of us. Sorry, am I allowed to pitch in?
You do. That's not fair, Shruti. Next time we should not cut Shaurya's. We should mute him by default. I think he's taking entire space for. He's being the only.
He's told me that he's going to be the forefront, and Aman.
No, I know. I imagine I've talked to him forefront before you coming here, right? So you can imagine that how I'm getting difficult to get here from Amandeep. Even on first we thought does he even speak? The first call was like that. But anyways, good. Amandeep, thanks a lot for the honest answer. Shaurya, please feel to add to it.
Yeah, I was just adding. See, honestly, the first part that Aman actually said is something that both of us are just really enjoying, because as he said, we've built a lot of products for the corporates or the organizations that we work for. Building it for ourselves is just so much better, right? It's like, you love children, but once you have your own child, that is when you realize, what it means to have a child. So
ask Govind. He is in that phase right now. That's why you see the reality separately with Govind.
Yeah.
I don't think Govind is gonna come online and speak, but yeah, I understand. All right, so we have our first question from the audience already. How are you planning to differentiate yourself compared to Spotify, which has a very decent embedded podcast integration across websites and apps like Slack and Discord? How are you different from them?
So basically, first of all, Spotify basically creates his own content. We are not creating our own content. We are basically our publishers are the content creators. So this is a major difference. There is no content cost associated with us. Second, the formats which basically we are different. We also in live room discussions, plus the recorded podcast, which we are basically giving them. Plus, we are also giving ads onto which are basically one source of revenue for publishers also. So that's the second differentiation.
Yeah, and adding to that, so of course, what Aman said holds true. Adding to that, we're also inventing on the format. So not only live, but one thing that we are doing across our integrations is that we are trying to keep the format of the podcast not more than 5 minutes, right? Our hero timeline would ideally be between 1 minute to 2 minutes. We are still experimenting with that format, but we also strongly feel that listening to a 40-minute, 30-minute podcast, at least in today's times, at a mass market level, might not really be appealing to everyone. However, we are really wanting to build a more mass market, mass appeal product, and which is why we feel that the innovation that we are doing around the format, the approach that we've taken, are the two key differentiators that we have against Spotify. By the way, also one more thing, Spotify is doing it as a good to have thing. Their publisher widget that they have, you won't see on much of the publisher, right? There are very handful of the platforms which have it today. Versus this is our bread and butter. So we have full. Our complete goal is to make our widget go across publishers, and we do what we have to do that. It's not an add-on thing that we have. So that's the fundamental difference between us and Spotify.
And how about the Slack audio and the Discord rooms that you have?
Yeah, of course. So as I said, so
beat against that.
Yeah, so Slack and Discord, they cater to a very, very limited set of audience right now. I mean, Slack, even within the professional community, Slack is used by a certain percentage. So goes for Discord. You know, it started with gaming, and of course it's expanded because of the pandemic, but still it's scratching the surface. Versus our vision is clear. We have to get to the tier 3s or the tier 4s of the world, right? And that's the fundamental, and which is why specifically we are not trying to build a standalone platform, which is why we are trying to put ourselves where people are consuming, right? That's the way we are differentiating ourselves.
Can I publish something from the Justbaat platform onto Slack and Discord also? Now that I asked about
in an ideal world, eventually, yes, when we are able to create a mesh. So probably a very, very strong word that I'm using here, but today, YouTube, for example, it's omnipresent, right?
Exactly.
Our vision is something similar. We also want to be omnipresent. And today, a Voot or a Hotstar is also on YouTube, right? Yeah. So, in the same fashion, that's our vision. That is what we stand for. That's what we are gunning for.
Awesome. One more before I start taking the questions in the chat here. Someone wanted to understand how Justbaat thinks of Anchor.fm as a competitor. Like they are also content distribution platform for podcasts and creators, also podcast creation platform. Also, do the creators get any tools to understand how their content is being consumed on different platforms on Justbaat?
Yeah, so of course, Anchor.fm again. So there are multiple podcast distribution platforms. We are not really innovating in that space, as we said, right? The thing that we're innovating with is that most of the distribution platforms enable distribution on the places where podcasting is already there. They just enable you to cross-publish across the existing platforms. So you don't have to go to a Spotify, you don't have to go to a Wink, you don't have to go to a Ghana and publish in all three. You can just use one of these tools and just publish it across. The fundamental difference between us and them is that, hey, we are trying to open up new avenues for podcast. We are not trying to just help you distribute better or ease of your life only. Right? So we are also adding more and more avenues, and that is the basic difference that we have. Yes, publishers and creators will have all the right tools to make their podcasting experience better. We are trying to, flirt around with a lot of new technical features like audio filters, audiogram, podcast. A lot of things are underway, and yeah, so we are awesome. There.
So just interrupting here. So I just wanted to give you some kind of demo how basically we are our product looks like. So basically integrating a room basically or a widget in the publisher website is relatively very easy. So there is a basically CMS tool where you can just create the room from the CMS, and basically there it's basically simple integration which we have just documented here, and this is how it will look like. So this is the floating basically integration where basically this floater which you're seeing here will be shown on the publisher side, and this is the room basically you can join just by clicking here. So this is one set of integration. Then there is a widget integration. Basically, where you want to attach a widget, like this is the widget you want to attach to the publisher website. So by clicking here, this again basically the room pop-up will be opened, and you can join the room from here. Similarly, there is a couple of if you want live rooms to be displayed, like this is the rail you want to display all the live rooms which you have. So this you want to integrate inside your suppose Times of India want to integrate in its homepage. This is basically the rail they can integrate with this piece of code, and basically a placeholder for them to basically join the room, for its user to join the room. So it's basically very plain, simple, no code integration with just few lines of code. Just I have to, in technical terms, the Java based script based SDK library which we have provided them, and they just need to integrate that in their website.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. We always love a great demo. And now that you've shown this, now we can actually visualize where it's going to go and get picked up. Now, Sumit, I have questions here from the audience, but if you have one, we'll let you go first, then I'll pick these.
I have just one last question, and then then I will be, as today I think Shruti has been super trailblazing me. I think I will talk to her separately. But again, on a serious note, guys, one last question from my side, and thanks, Shruti. I think you have been a great host as usual. So Shaurya and Amandeep, one last question. What is your vision in next 2 or 3 years about this entire Justbaat? And I think that's I'm talking from a user point of view, because I used to be on Clubhouse very actively last year, a massive user. I had great sessions, couple of them. But lately, as Shruti explained, and I think you also agreed, that Clubhouse became more of a monotonous for me, not great content. Somehow, I think I lost that lot personally. So how do you see you will keep the hook for the consumers or for users for next 2 or 3 years, and how you see it changing over time?
See, great question, Sumit. So honestly, for the users, what are we enabling? Essentially, our vision is to enable and build a decentralized quality content discovery network for them. So today, as you said, you lost interest in Clubhouse. You lost interest in Clubhouse because the content, you lost interest in the content, right? I mean, not with the format. The format was great. You were heard, you were being discussed, you were in the debates. But if you really get quality debates, you might want to invest time, right? At least there is a percentage of the users out there who would definitely want to invest time. The challenge is that how do you discover that content? You want to take away that discovery, issue or that load and cognitive load that we will have from them, and we want to enable discovery across platforms basis the user experience or the user behavior that they demonstrate. They don't have to go to places to find the content that they're looking for, and that's what our vision is.
Awesome. So we've got 2 questions from the audience here. First one's from MS. MS, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, or should I read it out for you?
Sorry, I did not look at the question.
That's okay. I'll read out or they'll unmute. They didn't unmute, so I'll read out. How's the Clubhouse app going to impact the podcast ecosystem?
Well, the way we see it until today, Clubhouse has definitely impacted it positively. It did, popularize a new format, as we all know of, is out there. And even Clubhouse is improving. I mean, probably those guys were not really moving with times the way they also saw some like crazy growth, right? But today, of course, I keep on visiting them because they're a competitor. So of course, I keep on stalking them. Every day I see that they're improving. So they're definitely impacting this entire format, this entire ecosystem positively. And I mean, we really look up to Clubhouse for that matter. So kudos to what they're doing.
Yeah, I think until they started recording and replaying, it was never a podcast competition.
Yeah.
Now I know that if I'm missing out on one particular room that I like, I can always go back and replay it like a podcast. So I think that has happened now. It wasn't there before. Okay, second question. Sanket, do you want to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Shruti. Thank you, Shaurya and Amandeep, for doing this. It's quite good to hear your story and how you have evolved from Wink to Justbaat. So what I try to understand over this is you are building an SDK kind of system over here. So the differentiation thing which you answered for Spotify, I would like to understand it from the customer persona side. Like for a Spotify, I believe the end user is we, the customers. But what I am able to interpret is for Justbaat, the user is some sort of enterprises or what? So if you can shed some light over there.
No, so our user is also the end customer. So it's definitely not the enterprise, but we are enabling the enterprises in order to reach out to our end customer. So hence we are a B2B2C solution for that matter, if we were to put it in that lingo. So of course that B2B is first and only then the B2C is going to happen. So which is why the tech stack that you see today, and the reason why we made it no code or low code is because we want to enable the businesses to easily plug in the experience and enable this entire format, this medium and us to reach out to the end customer.
Yeah, thank you. May I have a follow-on question to this?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. So the moment you are saying that you are enabling a enterprise to go ahead and publish their content, then comes the next question is that how are you going to regulate? Like while doing this discussion, I heard multiple times that we are focusing on working on content in local dialects and all these things. So once a publisher or the business to whom we have provided our SDK, they have onboarded it, it's up to them to continue with that kind of content which they are going to move ahead with. How is Justbaat going to regulate that? Like, can we ask the publisher to like, you have to go ahead with this kind of content or something like? Is there something? Basically, it will be directed by the demand which they want to see, something like that. So if you can shed some light over there.
No, absolutely. It's a very interesting question. In fact, this is something that me and Aman have deliberated a lot upon, right? And we've been also asked by a lot of people, even the investors, who we've spoken to in the past, that why are you not building a SaaS solution? Why are you calling yourself content distribution platform? You're a SaaS solution, guys. Why are you fooling around? And this is where we say that no, we are not a SaaS solution, right? See, our objective here is to ensure, as we said, and I'm reiterating, and then I'll answer your question, to enable the local content formats. Now, how do we do it? We do it through the publishers. How? By having a very, very robust content success function, right? This is where the analytics and everything comes into play, right? Where the best practices of the publishers will be shared across publishers, right? At an aggregate level, of course, right? So that is how we want to encourage the ecosystem to create more and more better content and to service the demand that eventually will have. So our first, and this is the reason why, see, most of the tech is ready. This is the reason why we are going slow with our first few deployments, right? Today, I mean, the publisher ecosystem is very kind. If you give them a good new age tech, they adopt it. They honestly do. If the tech is making sense to their business case, they would, right? We are making that adoption slower deliberately. We are not trying to go crazy. We are not talking to a lot of people at this stage. We are trying to get these first 5, 6, 10 POCs right, and only then we will start scaling, right? So this is very, very clear in our heads that we have to get the deployment and the customer success right. So hence the content creation right, and only once we are able to figure out that model is when we scale.
Awesome. So just for everyone's understanding of the size of the company, how big are you? Where are you based out of? And if you have any openings.
So we are a team of 8 individuals, including the founder at this point. So we are very, very new. We are not working out of an office. We do not aspire to have an office unless it's like really required by the team itself. So we are absolutely flexible. The way we see the world moving will probably be the hybrid model eventually. So we are also super keen to adopt it when it happens. But today we don't see any challenges in working remote, and all of us are working remotely. And yeah.
All right. And openings.
So of course, so we are hiring a UI UX person at like now. It's like really required. Most of the UI UX that you see on the website, on our deployments, is done by me and Aman. And we are not designers, so of course it's pathetic. So we really want to improve the aesthetics of the way the entire deployment, the product looks like. We're also looking for, Aman, in engineering, we're looking for a senior backend engineer and a senior data engineer, right?
Yeah.
So we are looking for a senior data engineer and a senienior backend engineer. We will share the details of the job description.
Sure. We'll be very happy to pick that up. I think I understood, and I'm not a coder, so I don't understand, but I think I understood that you're using mostly no code part of the environment. Would you be picking that up exclusively, or will you, I mean, I don't know how scalable a no code system is for a company which is becoming this big. And I think this is an Aman question, and he will hate me for asking a tech question that he has to answer, but sorry.
So could not understand the right.
So are you mostly on no code? If you are, do you think it's scalable for the kind of business that you are?
Yeah. I think so we are inspired with the integrations from how Google publishes its SDK, like Crash Analytics, Google Analytics. So similar way we are basically build for the developers and for the publishers for that. So generally it's you can easily plug in any WordPress site or Wix site, or any, if you have a custom website. So all the basically our tutorials or the documentations gives the ways how basically you can plug in any WordPress, or there is a great detail, and there is a CMS tool where you can basically just get the things through the CMS tool and just integrate that piece of code in your website. Just copy and paste that in your website in very easy steps. The first the thought behind that, our end customer, basically we want to the end customer should be the growth guys, not the developers. So we are not a competitor to Agora or other SDK providers. The integration with Agora is very heavy. If that requires some developer basically bandwidth, huge developer bandwidth to integrate with that system. So we are not going into the direction of Agora or that form. It will be more of a very easy integration, just like Google Analytics or just like any Spotify integration, where you just put a piece of code in your website and that job is done.
And I think in my very uninformed understanding, Agora also leads to, I mean, the whole Agora framework has not worked very well at scale for both Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse. So I'm guessing that keeping it as simple to integrate is something, I mean, that's a different platform altogether. You are not meeting with that.
And just to add, our technology is ground up. So we are not really using any existing Zooms or Agoras of the world. Aman and the team, they've all built it right from scratch. So
awesome.
The backend is fairly scalable. Yeah.
Awesome. Sumit, if you have any questions.
No, I think Shruti covered all the questions. I think it's been a fantastic session and quite lively because of the energy that, Shaurya and Amandeep carry. Really. And I think today, different, as I said, today at a different breakfast. Use the same breakfast every single call we do now. I think it's really different. I see different Shruti today. It's really good. Pharma engineer. I think it's your forte, I think, Shruti. This product is your forte.
Well, I will admit that I have not gone through the Justbaat website before I landed up here, but I have been a very thorough Clubhouse user. So I did have like a little bit of context, which is why most of my questions were circling around that way. Now that I understand it's not that. But yeah, thanks a lot, Shaurya, and thanks a lot, Amandeep, for coming up and gracing us with your presence. It's been an absolutely amazing, trailblazing session. A lot of questions, a lot of understanding, and we really love companies that are all hybrid, all remote, not actually bound down by you have to be in the city to do this. We're also very inspired by the kind of experience you bring in, the platform agnostic experience that you want to build. The fact that you're not just building it for consumers, but actually the people who will end up showing it to consumers. You might want to call it B2B2C, but I actually see it as B2C. Also, the kind of energy that Shaurya brought in, and even though we had to get it out of Aman was also very happy to share his thoughts. I'm very, very thankful to you for coming in. Thanks a lot. Please do share the openings that you would want us to share on our Slack platform. Do visit creatorsofproducts.com. We're very happy to have you here. Thanks, Sumit. Apologies for too much questions.
Come on, that's just fun. I think all in good spirit.
Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone for being here. Tune in soon again for another session with a great founder and a great company. Thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, guys. Stay safe.